And we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house. I got Evan Brand here right before the Christmas holiday. I think today is the first day of Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Christmas Eve is tomorrow. Really exciting. Evan, how are we doing today, man?
I'm doing wonderful. I brought up the idea of food reactions and skin issues. And this is something that a lot of people experience and they don't even know it. Think of your kids who you feed like a gluten-free cookie, and that cookie is
Mm-hmm.
loaded with potato starch and rice flour and corn flour, and then your kid gets a rash on a face, and then you don't even think about it. So like our daughter Summer, that's what happened to her probably, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago when we were trying to feed her some rice snacks. It was like these little rice cookies or rice crackers. I don't even remember exactly what it was. And she started getting a rash. And I thought, okay, what the heck is going on here? And this is a very, very common thing that adults experience, but they don't pay attention to it, or they're covered up in makeup. So the women don't see what's happening. But underneath all of that, there's some mechanisms that are dysfunctioning, which is probably your gut barrier is messed up or your immune system is messed up, which your gut is basically your immune system. And so why don't we kind of break this apart a little bit?
Yeah, so just in summary, we'll be hitting kind of some of the skin reactions due to food. That's going to be the big thing we hit off the bat. Well, I have a 4-month-old son who actually had some skin reactions recently, and we noticed some nuts and seeds and eggs were actually a big deal as well. So some women who are breastfeeding, and if their kids have skin issues, the first thing you want to look at is your diet. The natural tendency is to go to the pediatrician, and typically it's going to be some type of corticosteroid cream a lot of times that's going to be recommended, but a lot of times changing the diet helps. In this particular situation, his skin was also more reactive because it was just super, super dry based on the time of the year. So we just used some pure lanolin, and that helped as well. But also making some diet changes also really, really move the needle. So one of the first things we can do is make diet changes on top of that. And sometimes people who are already coming into this health space on a paleo template, they've already cut out grains and maybe the junk food and the refined sugars and the not so good fats. But then they're like, wait, I'm still having an issue. And it could be eggs, it could be nuts, it could be seeds, it could be those, will be the bigger foods that could also be a problem, maybe even nightshades. And I'd say autoimmune template may be the next thing we want to jump on versus just a strict paleo template.
Yeah. And it's hard for kids too, right? I mean, my little girl is, what is she, 8 months old now? And your little boy's what, coming up on 4 months?
Yes, my second son, Hudson, he's almost 4. And then my son, Aiden, my first son, Aiden's 2.25 or so.
Yeah. So see, the interesting thing is a lot of things that we see in kids, like our own kids, are the things we see in the people that we're working with clinically, because I'm not saying that the infant gut is the same as an adult gut, but in the sense that the adult that comes to us that has all these problems, they have a leaky gut and they probably have low diversity, just like a baby does. A baby basically comes into the world with a leaky gut and low diversity that you have to build up and create. You kind of have to manufacture a good microbiome in an infant. So a lot of things that we see in our own kids, it's interesting because we see the same thing in adults. So you mentioned your son having issues with eggs. Same thing with our little one. We gave her some eggs and then boom, immediately a rash on the cheek. And we gave her some almond butter and then boom, immediately a rash on the cheek. So I want to point out one thing, which is that these foods that are put into the paleo or like the ancestral category, they're really not that paleo. They're really not that paleo. Meaning, if you take like an almond butter bar, for example, how many almonds would that have taken to create that bar? And how hard would it have been for our ancestors to take the almond off the tree? I think the almond is sealed up in something, isn't it? Where you have to probably crack it open and get the almond out versus
Right.
when you eat a bar, it's just so hyper processed. It's like, yeah, it's organic, it's this and that, but it's like that never would have happened in nature. So I think a lot of our food reactions may happen just because we're being exposed to things that we shouldn't be exposed to, like an almond bar that's like 200, 200 almonds, for example.
Exactly. Now, in regards to that, I mean, it can be more of an issue when there's already a potential nut sensitivity to begin with, and then you're eating the equivalent of like multiple handfuls of nuts. That could definitely be a problem. But in general, if you're pretty good health, that could be a good option for like an 80-20 thing, where like there may be like a healthier cheat, paleo cheat wise, that is in your ballpark. And that's kind of where you want to try. I think it's great for that, but we just want to make sure we don't make those things staples.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love a good organic almond bar here and there, but just when it comes to food reactions, I'm trying to find a picture of it. This is the sad thing. I've never actually been to an almond tree to see how the almond sits on the tree. I'm sure it's encapsulated in some sort of shell. Yeah, I see a picture here. So yeah, so it is encapsulated of some sort. So I mean, you think about an ancestor, they would have been having to crack that bad boy open. I mean, you probably would have been tired after 15, 20 almonds worth of cracking, you know? You're not going to eat just handfuls and handfuls and handfuls or scoops and scoops and scoops of butter.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So we have those are other types of food reactions. And when the kids are younger, it's different because mom has the full ability to control what's going in to her and to her breast milk, right? So we have that. The next thing is as kids are starting to eat their own foods, now what? So the first thing I always look at is trying to use safe starch alternatives over any kind of grain. I think that's always safer. So I'll always go to a yucca flour or a cassava flour or some kind of an arrowroot, which is usually a combination of primarily yucca, as a good, healthy, safe starch if we're going to consume something processed, right? So I always try to keep that in mind. Number one, we don't get a lot of those in our society, right? And number two, we don't have the gluten sensitivity component because there are other types of grains, corn, rice, and oat that, you know, are in that gluten-free category. They don't have gliadin in it, but they have horzonin or avenin or a zein in the form of corn. And these are cousins and sisters and brothers of gluten. And there could be this case of mistaken identity, just like there's a family resemblance in certain families. Well, there's a immune resemblance to the immune system in regards to gluten. So we got to keep that in the back of our head.
Yeah, so if you just look up gluten cross reactivity, there's actually some testing out there, some highly advanced, expensive testing that you could do if you wanted to try to get an answer on paper. But a lot of times you can just figure it out based on how you feel if you get a rash, for example. Like I was doing organic blue corn chips for a while. I loved them. This was probably a couple of years ago. And then I started to have reaction. It would either be like a headache or just some change with the skin. And so you're basically saying that with the receptor, corn can sort of fit into this gluten receptor, meaning that the body gets tricked. It's sort of like, oh, this is gluten. And then boom, it's going to go create this inflammatory response. But it was an accident. It wasn't actually gluten. It was corn. And this is the same thing with chocolate, believe it or not, and coffee as well. What else is on that list? Potato is on the list, yeast. You mentioned rice. I mean, gluten cross reactivity is a huge, huge link to skin problems. So this is like the low hanging fruit to look at.
Yeah, there's definitely that. So we have to keep that kind of in our mind. That's like the first thing because there are a lot of people that come onto this camp and they just, you know, gluten-free is a very trendy thing. We always draw a line between gluten-free processed and grain-free alternatives. That's really, really important to kind of highlight, number one. Number two, poor digestion of even foods that we're consuming that we're having allergenicity to, an immune response to, is a big deal as well. So the more we can break that allergen down, makes it easier for our gut to process it.
And why is that process failing though? See, that's the thing that people don't get. It's like, okay, I'm eating good. Why am I still having these issues?
Well, because if a food is naturally inflammatory for you or creates a stress response in your body, that stress response is going to make it harder for you to make enough enzymes or acid to be able to process the food to begin with. So we have to just know that may be an issue and combat it with more enzymes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, you know, there are certain foods that are like, we call it like an intolerance. Like an intolerance is a lactose intolerance where maybe you can't break down that sugar in milk, i.e. lactose, but if we give you more enzymes, the lactase enzyme, you can handle it. So it may not necessarily be an allergen issue. It may be an intolerance issue, and it may be a combination of the two, because the more intolerant you are to something, the larger that molecule is in your gut, and the greater chance that thing will then, now there'll be an immune reaction to it because we weren't able to break it down into like a peptide type of form, a really small form, if you will.
Yeah, and what you're saying without directly saying it is there's like a spectrum of reaction. So it could be just a very, very minor, quote, food intolerance or food sensitivity. And then you go all the way up to like straight allergic reaction, where after you eat the eggs, you've got the gallbladder pain, you've got the sniffles, you've got the headache, you know. So in between that spectrum, of course, there's other root causes beneath. So it's not just the eggs that you blame. Then you have to investigate the gut and figure out, well, is the gut compromised with some sort of infection? You mentioned the enzymes. Well, why? Why is there not enough enzymes in the first place? Is this just age? Is it not chewing the food enough? Is it that they were stressed while they were eating? They're like scrolling on Instagram while they're trying to eat their meal. What the heck is going on?
The food in itself is stressful. So yeah, so the easiest first thing to do is just get more enzymes and acids in and make sure you're chewing your food up well and you control the stress in the environment. Those are the first 2 to 3 things. And then from there, if we still have problems, then we can of course start cutting or paring back foods or just trying to cook the foods better. People forget that the reason why we cook foods and part of the reason that our brains evolved is through fire. We were able to cook, imagine eating like raw flesh. Very hard to digest that and process that. As soon as you start cooking it with fire, you're able to start pre-digesting a lot of that food. And that food then makes it more accessible to your gut and to your brain and to all of your organ systems. So just by cooking that food up better, using an Instapot or steaming those vegetables or, sauteing it, you access more nutrition. Like if you look at if you go to like My Food Data or you go to the US Department of Health where they look at nutrition, like nutrients in food. And if you just compared the nutrients in raw broccoli to cooked broccoli, the nutrients actually go higher in cooked broccoli. Why? It's because we can actually access those nutrients. We can access them. That's the difference.
Yeah, it's an activator. So the raw vegetarian vegan people, that's why if we were to just throw out a label, if someone said, "Hey, Dr. J, Evan, who are the most most malnourished people you've seen on data, like looking at amino acid profiles or like some of the ion profiles," it would be like a raw vegetarian, a raw vegan. And here's the interesting thing. Those people have a lot of food reactions too. That's probably what led them to that sort of diet in the first place, right? They'll say, well, I was reacting to everything, so I just went raw, or I just went carnivore, for example. That could be another flavor of diet where people go to an extreme, but they're missing the root cause of trying to calm the immune system down, restore the gut barrier, clear the infections.
Have you ever seen a raw vegan eat in front of you?
Dude, I never have. I've probed some of them because I have clients that'll say that they're raw vegans when they start working with us. And I'll tell them straight up, look, I'm really going to push you not to be a raw vegan anymore, but just walk me through your lunch. And then they'll tell me through their lunch. And it's like beans and arugula.
Well, I've seen a handful of people that I know that are raw vegans, and I've had lunch with them. Here's my experience. Number one is they need a salad that is absolutely massively big because, if we just have like some protein in a little side salad, that side salad's maybe going to have like 30 calories in it, right? So they literally have a salad that's just absolutely massive, which is great, right? No problem with that. But number one, because there's so much fiber in there, it literally takes them about 45 minutes to eat the salad. And it makes sense because if you look at cows, right, which eat grass, if you look at how much time cows spend eating, cows literally spend 16 hours a day eating, 16 hours of nonstop eating. And so it's interesting. If you're a good vegetarian or vegan, you literally have to be eating for 30, 40, 50 minutes straight at a whack. Now, where you can kind of sidestep that is you can do juices, like you can do celery juice, or you can juice that, which allows you to get more of the nutrition without having to chew a whole bunch. And two, you can steam it or saute it, and that kind of makes it more accessible too. But the raw vegans, they're really handicapped in that way. And of course, they are going to need extra amino acids, whether it's from hemp or a free-form amino acid formula. You can do it from a vegan perspective. It's a lot harder and it's much more unnatural. And you're going to have to rely a lot on protein powders for the most part, or you'll be doing rice and beans and you'll be getting 400 grams of carbohydrates. If you want, half a gram per pound of body weight, you're going to be consuming a ton of carbohydrate.
Now, let me ask you this. Great points. Do you think it's just a correlation? Do you think it's just a coincidence that when we do see like a raw vegetarian vegan person, they're having all these food reactions, they're reacting to every food, they're getting watery eyes, they're getting skin rashes, they're getting hives. That's what led them to that diet in the first place. Do you think it's a coincidence that they're still very sick on that? Do you think it's due to lack of collagen and things to build back up the gut barrier, so they just stay with a leaky gut, so they're stuck with veggies and they're still miserable? Or do you think it's just that, I guess the answer could be both. They had a bunch of infections or something, or they went to Bali and got a bunch of parasites that screwed up their gut, and then they felt bad, so then they went that diet.
It's a combination of two. So it all depends where you see them in the cycle. Okay, here's the cycle. Okay, I've heard it described as the vegan holiday. It all depends where you're coming from in your diet. If you're coming from a standard American diet where you're eating junky meats, lots of hormones, pesticides, lots of carbohydrates, refined sugar, and you go to a vegan diet, you're always going to feel better. It's always relative to from what you're coming from to where you're going to, number one. Number two is how much inflammation. Like they may have added inflammation through lots of anti-nutrients, but the drop in inflammation from all the other crap was greater. So they're going to feel better. Does that make sense? So there's this detoxifying effect that from just cleaner foods, organic, lots of nutrition and vegetables, less hormones. So there's that vegan honeymoon that happens. Number two, and then the people that actually do better with it are the ones that are more ectomorphs. They can handle more carbohydrate. Because it's very hard to be on a vegan diet and not consume a ton of carbohydrate. Very, very tough. If you look at the amount of calories you get from just vegetables, it is no way, right? 6 ounces of protein sources in animal products like grass-fed meat, you need 16 cups of kale to compete with that. No one's going to do that in a day. And it's much easier to eat 6 ounces of meat than 16 cups of kale. It's just not going to happen. So you need to get other complex starchy sources along with that to get the correct amino acid profile. And then you also need to combine it with other foods like rice or beans or lentils or whatever. And so then you get about a 65 to 70% carbohydrate split. So then now your carbohydrates have to be over what the food pyramid recommends, which is about usually a 60 on the carbs, 15 on the protein, 25 on the fat. And now you're upwards of 70%. And so if you're not exercising a lot or pretty active, you're pretty screwed. So in general, people do feel better because plants are easy to digest than meats. But when the plants become excessively raw and you're not using cooking to help break that down, it can become hard. So a lot of the anti-nutrients, the phytates, the oxalates, a lot of that fiber on a damaged gut can be very, very hard to digest. And then once you start factoring in something like SIBO or bacterial overgrowth, where the gut bacteria is very high in a lot of dysbiotic things like Citrobacter or Prevotella or Pseudomonas, and then you have a lot of these higher fermentable carbohydrates like onions or broccoli or Brussels sprouts or garlic, then that can really feed a lot of these things and you can get more gas and more bloat, and that can disrupt motility, whether you're more on the diarrhea side or on the constipated side. And that's very common. And of course, that's going to make it hard for you to absorb nutrition.
Yeah, it's great points. I want to go back to some of the Band-Aids and things. You mentioned the SIBO. So of course, we're going to be testing and looking at your gut and trying to get that resolved, because a restrictive diet, regardless of how restricted or what type of restrictions there are, that's still not root cause, right? Like someone could just say, well, I feel fine. I've got 5 foods that I can eat. It's like, well, that's not a way to live. You can only eat 5 things. Otherwise you're miserable. That's not a way to live. You're missing something. So in the meantime, though, you mentioned enzymes, which can be good. And then also you and I could use some type of herbal antihistamines. So we may throw in like one ingredient we use, Japanese Sephora. That is something that naturally contains quercetin, and quercetin can help stabilize some of these reactions. You've got stinging nettle, which can be helpful. You've got sodium bicarbonate is added to some histamine solutions we use. Vitamin C can help with histamine reactions. What else? I mean, there's a ton that I know of. I don't have the full list in front of me.
Yeah, I would also say just DAO enzyme, diamine oxidase, and you can get that in kidney glandular tissue, which helps break down the enzymes. And some people, we need to just be on a lower histamine diet as well. That could be a big one too. I've seen people when we go after like H. pylori infections or gut infections, sometimes the body gets overwhelmed. The immune system and detoxification system get overwhelmed, and the skin gets used as a means to push things out of. It's very possible that's the case. So I've gone on a couple of tangents, but I want to bring it all home, right? Anytime we have stress in the gut, the skin can be affected. So I'm just trying to like zoom out. Okay, here are all the things that can happen in the gut. But anytime I'm talking about the gut, the skin's intimately connected with that as well. So just keep that in the back of your head, everyone listening. The more we can reduce inflammation in the gut, we automatically help the skin, number one. And then number two, when we have issues with the skin, we can always do things to kind of help. I mean, there are different essential oils that can be used if it's an eczema reaction. Peppermint's excellent. Calendula's really good if it's eczema or psoriatic reaction. Usually psoriasis is more flaky, eczema isn't. And there's an autoimmune component. So we really just, we default back to that autoimmune diet. I have parents that tell me, well, my kid's on it like 60% or 70% or 80%. It's like, it's not enough. That's the equivalent of your kid having a peanut allergy and being like, well, he only eats peanuts 1 day a week. It's like, no, doesn't work. Like you got to be 100% to see the benefit, because every time you stimulate the immune response, there's a reaction and there's a reaction. And part of the healing comes from not stimulating that immune system and then we give healing nutrients to calm it down, whether it's collagen or whether it's DGL or aloe or just kind of soothing things, ginger. These are all, clean amino acids. These are all really good things. The enterocytes in our gut, those leaky gut junctions are made from their amino acids are actually needed to help with that. That's why the GAPS diet is so high in glycine from organ meats and collagen, and bone marrow so high in glycine, because the glycine really helps with the enterocyte tight junction. So, and that's an amino acid, and it's going to be an amino acid that's going to be lower in plant-based products too.
Yep, absolutely. That's the ding, ding, ding that I was waiting for you to do. That's like, okay, if you're still listening, you're still vegan after this podcast, then please reach out to Justin, schedule a consult, and let us convince you with science. That's the thing. It gets really silly when you see various documentaries that come out, and it's all emotional. You and I've talked about this before, where there's like an emotional drive behind some of the things, but people just lose the clinical piece. And so we don't have an agenda beyond getting people well. We could care less about this or that and the politics of this or that. That's not our goal. Our goal is just to help you get better. And so we use the laboratory testing, and we use the data. And of course, most importantly, we use your symptoms. How is your skin doing with this diet change? How is your skin doing now that we've resolved these issues? Now that we've added in the collagen or the bone marrow, we've added extra glycine and bone broth. How are you doing? How are you feeling? And our results. And if you look at all of our 5-star reviews, that's all you have to know. We're doing this to get a clinical result and an outcome that allows people to have less symptom and to enjoy their life more. And so there's times where we have to change our opinion on stuff because of that. If we try something and it doesn't work, then we've got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. The key thing is just look at how we've evolved from a food perspective. When you go back and you look at hunter-gatherer societies and you look at the nutrition that allowed our brain to grow and evolve, it's easy to see because you can connect the dots. And the only way you can come to a different conclusion is if you are missing that accurate timeline of how we got to where we're at now. If you miss that, then it makes sense. But if you really understand it, or in summary, old foods don't cause new disease, right? If you had that mindset, you would not have fallen prey to the low fat scam of the 80s and 90s, and then all the trans fats and the margarines and the vegetable oil spray. If you had that mindset, you don't fall prey to that thing. So if you have a different lens and a filter and how to look at things and perceive things, you won't get propagandized.
Yep, absolutely. So,
very cool.
Like I said, there's a lot of things we can do testing wise, looking at stool, looking at organic acid testing. There's nutrient profiles. There's ways to measure your gut barrier, as Justin talked about, kind of sealing up the gut to fix these skin issues and reactions. And so you could drink a gallon of bone broth a day and not get any better. Number one, because bone broth can be high in histamine, depending on whether it's store-bought or home cooked or how long you cooked it for. So, people just think you could just sip bone broth and stay in your pajamas all day and fix your gut, but that's not how it works in reality. You've got to you got to find and fix underlying causes as well.
Yeah. I mean, the example is this, okay? People listening to that, just imagine you put aloe on your sunburn every day, but you still go out past the amount of time you should be outside, and you get burned every day. I'm going to go outside, I'm going to get burned, but I'm going to just rub aloe on it every single night. And then you repeat that cycle. Is your skin ever going to heal? No. And it's the equivalent to what people's guts are. They're sunburned every day, and they're just continuing to rub aloe on it.
I love that. I love the analogies. It really just helps clarify things. I need to get better at analogies.
Well, the thing with an analogy is it sticks. Like, you don't have to memorize that analogy. It resonates. It's in your soul. You get it because there's a picture. You visualize it in your brain. You've had that experience before, and you're connected to it. It's not something you have to memorize. It's not a mechanism that you have to read in a study and memorize it. So yeah, if people walk away with a couple of, pictures in their brain about the concepts we're talking about, I think we're in good shape. Is there anything else you want to highlight in regards to food reactions on the skin?
I would say that they are reversible. I've had my fair share of food reactions as well, just in various stages of healing with my body, adrenals, gut, and on and on. And so things that you react to now are not things that you necessarily will react to in the future. We've had people that were on such limited, such restricted diets, and they were so happy that they could add back in nuts and seeds and add back in eggs and add in avocado again and add in citrus. So don't just assume that because right now you can only eat 5 foods or 10 foods, or you can't eat this and you wish you could. We're never going to say go eat gluten and all this other garbage, but I'm talking real good foods like, let's say, cashews, but you have a bad problem with cashews or eggs, but you are in pain every time you eat eggs. The good news is a lot of this stuff is reversible. You just have to get to the root cause. So if you try the digestive enzyme route, you're still struggling, look deeper, reach out clinically. Even if you don't work with us, you work with somebody else. As long as they know what they're doing and they get you better, we're happy. But of course, we would love the opportunity to help you. So Justin and I work with people around the world. We send these advanced lab tests to your home. If we need to send you out for blood locally, we get blood locally. We do a lab review. We review it all together. We lay all the puzzle pieces out on the table and we put those in the correct order, which is the secret sauce to getting people better. You can't just go straight to aloe. You might have to clear bad guys first. So we've covered that concept many times, but it's worth repeating. So Justin Health is where you can get a hold of Dr. J. So justinhealth.com, reach out clinically around the world. And then my site is evanbrand.com. And thanks for tuning in. We love that you're all part of this conversation. So please add comments, questions to the video, reach out on social media sites, email us, whatever you got to do. Let us know if there's a topic that we can cover, and we'd love to.
100%. And guys, if you are eating a good diet already, just remember this: if you love it, rotate it. If you love it, rotate it, especially the protein sources. Those are going to be the compounds that are the most allergenic. Keep the anti-nutrients down. And don't forget, we were all focused on a good diet and good supplementation. But remember, cooking is also one of the best digestive means, along with really good chewing. So just keep that in the back of your head. We have 32 teeth, 32 chews is a pretty good amount. 1 tooth per chew. About an oatmeal-like consistency is pretty darn good. You don't got to think about it, but just kind of get your food to that level of a texture in your mouth before you swallow. That helps your enzymes and your digestive system work a lot easier. So I really appreciate it. Evan, today was a great chat. People want to get to that next step, evanbrand.com or justinhealth.com for myself. We're available worldwide for people that need extra support and help. Evan, anything else you want to leave us today, man?
I would just say take care. Everybody enjoy the new year. Try not to go too off the rocker. We always get those calls in January like, oh, I really screwed up over the holidays and now I'm here to get better. You don't have to do that. Like, we're still here, but it's much better. Let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is the best. If you feel like you're at a 6, don't set yourself back eating pumpkin pie to take you down to a 3 to then to try to get back up to a 6. Kind of stay on track right now. And that way you have less work to do. It makes it easier for us and easier for you. And it's cheaper. The less in the hole you are, the cheaper, because you get better faster. So
100%. We'll really appreciate today's chat. Hey, Evan, you have a very Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holidays, my friend.
You
and
too.
We'll be in touch in the next couple weeks. Take care.
Merry Christmas, man. See ya. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.